Banjul, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. This is GRTS News in our headlines. GRTS investigates the connection between cancer and cosmetic product that is said to compress the breast, trapping harmful cancer-causing toxins. Gambian civil society groups revealed their position on the new Bill of Rights voted down by the National Assembly as government opens the way towards constitutional dialogue. After successfully completing 12-year education, Talindin Islamic Institute graduates over 300 students. In internationals, a deliberately triggered explosion happens in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, in a normally busy downtown area of the Southern American city. Elsewhere, hundreds of migrants stranded in northwestern Bosnia spent a fourth night in freezing temperatures and squalid conditions after the camp that housed them was burned down. Well, these and much more coming ahead in this edition of the news with me, Aissatou Keita, and thanks for joining us. Well, a warm welcome to the news with me, Aissatou Keita. We begin this edition of the news with some public health challenges because cervical and breast cancer are still the two most common cancers among women in the Gambia. The disease has claimed the lives of scores of young women in the country, which continues to lag behind in advancing cancer care, screening and treatment. For women, that risk of cancer are found in a number of products, which includes wearing of bras, which are worn by women and girls to prevent their breasts from sagging. This report by Mama J takes a close look at the connection between bras and cancer and the claim that the product contains silicone gel, which is said to cause allergic reactions that lead to breast cancer.
Cancer is becoming a growing concern in the Gambia, and cervical cancer has been in the spotlight in the country in recent years. But why is it so special? A question I put to Dr. Lamin Jaite, a consultant and general surgeon at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital.
This is a cancer that if we put in efforts to detect it on time, we can actually save a lot of women from getting cancer and eventually dying from that particular cancer.
Cancer is said to spread through the body when it loses control of its own. But what are the causes of cancer? Dr. Abdullah Keita is an obstetrician, gynecologist, and lecturer at the University of the Gambia.
There are certain things we call them cofactors or risk factors that predispose some women more to developing cancer of cervix than to the others. And among those risk factors is tobacco in any of its forms, including cigarette smoking. People who sneak tobacco, people who take tobacco in any form is a recognized risk factor for a long time for cancer of cervix. The others is if you have other infections in your genital tract, they can predispose you to cancer of cervix like gonorrhea, syphilis. They can all predispose you to cancer of cervix. If your immunity, that is the body's defense, is reduced, like if you have HIV, you have diabetes, they can predispose you to cancer of cervix. If you start sexual activities too early in your life, it can predispose you to cancer of cervix. If you have too many sexual partners, it can predispose you to cancer of cervix.
According to health officials, cervical cancer is the second leading cause of death among women in the Gambia. The disease kills women in their prime or youthful age.
Most patients diagnosed with breast cancer early enough about 9 out of 10 of them would still be alive at 5 years. About 8 out of 10 of them would still be alive at 10 years. So it goes against the thinking that if somebody has cancer, it's a death sentence. No. The most important thing is being able to detect the cancer on time and then making sure you get the right treatment.
Statistics show that 53,000 women in Africa die of cervical cancer every year, an average 154 women per hour. According to WHO 2014 report, cervical cancer deaths in the Gambia was at 54 or 0.40%. But the good news is that cervical cancer is highly treatable, with a cure rate of over 90% if detected early, according to cancer experts. However, health officials observe that many cancer patients in the Gambia seek medical attention often too late, when the disease must have reached an advanced stage.
Cervical cancer, if detected early, can be managed, and the treatment is simple and easy with very little complications. So every woman who is above the age of 30, who is actively married, can walk to the screening center and get screened. Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, Banjul, SOS, Bafro, Afrimed, Brikama, Yundum, SL, Basse, all have screening centers.
In 2019, the government of the Gambia rolled out a massive immunization campaign of young girls across the country to protect them from cervical cancer. One organization that is complementing that effort is the Cancer League Association, the Gambia, a group of organizations that is dedicated to raise awareness on cancer. Ajidafe is the chairperson of the association.
We did a fundraising, and we needed about $15 million. Unfortunately, we were only able to raise 1.2 million. The fundraising event that we did, after all the proceeds were actually accounted for, we raised about 1.2 million from one night. The Minister of Health of the Gambia, we're here to work with you. We're here to support, to complement your efforts.
The organization makes best use of Pink October, a month-long campaign dedicated globally to raise awareness on cancer. Mama J, GRTS.
Well, that was Mama J there, ending her report on cervical and breast cancer. Moving on, Talindin Islamic Institute graduated over 300 students after successfully completing 12-year education at the school. Parents, teachers and regional authorities from far and near attended the ceremony at the school grounds. Ibrahim Ajalo has the details.
The ceremony opened with verses of the Holy Quran, as 340 graduating students gathered for the official completion of 12-year studies at the Talinding Islamic Institute. Mariama Arafam Toure, a graduate, delivered an emotional speech highlighting their educational pursuit while remembering colleagues who are no more. Among them is one Aisha Kamara, who is said to have died in an accident after sitting to the final exams. Scholars and invited guests took the podium, congratulating the graduates for the academic success and urged them to work harder for posterity. The mayor of Kanif municipality, Talib Ahmed Bensouda, graced the occasion. He congratulated the graduating students and promised his office's support to the school. The principal of the school, Cherno Dabo, expressed delight for yet another graduation ceremony. He said the school has achieved academic excellence since it was established in 1963. The ceremony was punctuated with social and moral lessons. Walnamin Senghor delivered a poem on irregular migration, which claims thousands of lives, mostly youths.
It makes me mad and I am sad. It is sad for they don't deserve to die like this. For they deserve better than this is sad than mother die with her child, a child who's supposed to be in school to learn. It is sad that our parents are encouraging.
Diverse culture and traditions, as well as drama performances, capped the event. Ibrahim Jallo, GRTS News.
The visiting Sheriff community of Sheikh Mahfouz Foundation concluded their national prayer with a visit to Birkama. The delegation, which prayed for the people of Kombo, comes amid uncertainties that continue to grip the world. With COVID-19 inflicting economic challenges and obstructing growth, leaders of the delegation say it is prudent to clear the path with prayer to address COVID-19 and some other problems that people in the Kombo region continue to face on a daily basis. Fatu Elika Molushi has more in this report.
The Sheriff community of Sheikh Mahfouz Foundation on Saturday climaxed their national prayer with a visit to Brikama. The intention to pray for the people of Kumbo comes amid the uncertainties that continue to grip the world. With COVID-19 inflicting economic challenges and obstructing growth, the leaders of the delegation say it is prudent to clear the path with prayer among the other challenges that people in the Kumbo region continue to face on a daily basis. Scores of people gather to listen to the sermon of the people believed to be descendants of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Vast in prayer and religious knowledge, the sheriffs advised the people to let God take charge in order to alleviate the current difficulties and unreasonable obstacles meted on their persons for their improved livelihoods and way of life. As human beings are believed to be spiritual beings, the Imam of Brikama, Alhaji Sankunture, used the opportunity to thank the sheriffs for their goodwill, saying they came to Brikama on their own accord with the intention of praying for peace and tranquility in the community. The Imam says even though they are not surprised by the noble gesture, they extend heartfelt appreciation to the sheriffs for extending prayer to the community. The Alkali of the community, Alhaji Bakari Dembo Santa Bojang, says the prayers delivered during the Friday sermon was unprecedented. He thanked the sheriffs for their foresight and willingness to always deliver such precious gifts to the Muslim community, whilst assuring them their warm reception throughout their days in Brikama. The sheriffs concluded by advising people to continue honoring their leaders and religious heads for a smooth path and everlasting peace. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Fatu Elika Mulushi.
The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, in partnership with National Council for Civic Education, have concluded a 3-day training on peace building and leadership for school-going children and dropouts in the Central River region. Mohamed Lamin Sane has more in this report.
This strategic step by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in partnership with the National Council for Civic Education to train young people in and out of school on peace building. The program, which is under the Peace Building Fund for Civic Education being supported by UNICEF, is anchored on teaching young people on leadership skills and important civic rights and duties.
This is a very welcoming move from the Department of from the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in partnership with UNICEF and in collaboration with Civic Education. The essence of the training is for change in behavior. If you go for a training on any other thing, by the time you left that place, you should be a different person. So I expect you to pay attention, follow the session keenly, and clear your doubts with them.
This scheme here seeks to further prepare young people to meaningfully transition into practicing citizens.
This activity is very, very important in the sense that we try to teach you on your responsibilities as future leaders. And during the course of these 3 days, you will learn a lot on civic rights and leadership. As young leaders, you have a role to play. You have a responsibility in your communities.
Young participants drawn from schools across the region through the Second Chance Educational Program are expected to take up lead roles of peace building.
Leadership skills and leadership style, because you are going to be leaders. Whether it's in the next 2 years or 3 years, you are going to become head boys, you're going to become VDC chairs or whatever. You're going to become leaders in terms of political, in terms of whatever. So targeting you right now, I think is the right time. If you invest in the youth, you have a future of a country. So you also be engaged on the duties and responsibilities of citizens. What are your duties as young people? What are your responsibilities in terms of taking the Gambia forward? You also have those things. You also have leadership skills and then life skills, the skills that you need as a citizen to be able to live with people peacefully without having any resort to conflict. And you also have to be help on mentorship and civic engagements. How do you engage in your socio-economic development?
This is the second phase of the training, and for 3 days, participants will be guided by the Council on the importance of peace and their responsibilities as citizens. Modulamin Sane reporting for GRTS News.
We now head to the Upper River region where our Seydou Kamara covered a similar forum organized by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in partnership with the National Council for Civic Education.
It could be recalled that teachers and school administrators recently received training on civic education, enhance their understanding of civic rights in a bid to promote peace and democracy at the school level. Phase 2 of the program is targeting students in an effort to enlighten them more on civic education, including human rights, rules of law, democracy. The theme for this event is the Gambia We Want is in You. A senior education officer at the Regional Education Directorate, Salum Kinte, said training students on rights and duties as citizens is a good initiative for the country.
Present and future leaders of this country. The reason why I say present leaders, without you, I don't think we'll be involved in a lot of distance. But because we need to guide you, mold, shake you, in order to get the best out of you, or in order to prepare you for the betterment of this country and your own livelihood. It is very important and crucial to involve you in programs like this so that you are well equipped.
Program officer at the National Council for Civic Education, Usman Ba, stated that part of the mandate of the NCC is to educate citizens on their rights and duties.
A few weeks ago, we were here with your teachers and with your school administrators. And that's why we think that this engagement today will at least strengthen that kind of engagement to make sure that with what you learn and what your teachers learn, if you bring these things together, we can have a stronger country where people are more aware of their rights, but of course their duties as citizens. We all know the Gambia, for the past few years, we have been going through a transition. Meaning the government that was here, it was changed in 2016, so we have a new president, we have a new government. So this thing comes with a lot of challenges and of course a lot of opportunities for reconciliation, for development. But of course on the other hand, when it comes to how we engage one another in terms of what we mean by democracy and similar issues, there are a lot of challenges. So that's why when we are talking about peace building, we're talking about civic education. I think you are the right people to target at this stage.
The head of the Life Skills Unit, Barasen, explained the importance of leadership and civic education as well as civic duties and rights of students, both in and outside the school. According to Mr. Sen, the Peace Building Funding Program seeks to support the Gambia transitional process, and that young people are not exception.
We have in and out of school youth, mainly school children and the second chance centers where we can target people who should have been in school but by circumstances they were not in school. That's why we have the second chance centers alongside the students so that we will have that collaboration, that match. As we train teachers that we are here and we have students from that school, we expect that when you get back to your school, tell your teachers that I went for the same thing you attended. How do we start the civic education club and peace building club? We don't want to just have a training and go like that. Those that came, we took their numbers and we were encouraging you also. If you go start something and have a club about civic education, train those that are not here, tell them about what is the importance for you to respect the Gambian law. How do you respect the Gambian law? What is your right as a citizen? What is your duty to do as students? So that we will have a very peaceful society.
It is hoped that the quality of training received by teachers, school administrators and students and the promotion of rights and duties of citizens will go a long way in realizing Gambia democratization process. Seydou Kamara reporting for GRTS News from Basse, Upper River Region.
Now, civil society organizations in the Gambia have summoned a press briefing outlining their stand on the draft constitution rejected by National Assemblies 3 months ago. The new proposed Bill of Rights, which failed to draw a majority vote, died a quiet as legislators voted to suffocate it before it reaches a public referendum. The outcome evoked mixed reactions and a public debate that continues as people speculate about the future of a document produced from 2 years of activities and broad nationwide consultations. Leading the civic society conference on the future of the rejected draft, the chairman of the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations in the Gambia, John Charles Njai, explained the organization's stance on the bill and ongoing negotiations involving various groups to revive its journey. Let's take a listen.
The Gambia Society organizations welcome the government of the Gambia's decision to revive the final draft constitution through a national consensus building process. 3 months after it failed to pass in the National Assembly. The draft constitution came on the heels of sustained desire of the Gambians for a new constitution. Therefore, when the autocratic regime of the former president was ousted on the 2nd of December 2016, Gambians yearned for a new political chapter, which is founded on democracy, rule of law, good governance, and Republican values. Generally, Gambians have recognized that the Constitution of the Gambia 1997 is in many ways deficient in providing a democratic and progressive dispensation, mainly because of the numerous undemocratic and self-serving amendments it was subjected to under the former regime. Following the democratic transition of power from the former government to a coalition government, Gambians legitimately desired and anticipated a new constitution that would, among other things, overhaul the 1997 constitution and an array of bad laws used as tools to perpetuate autocracy and dictatorship. Both the coalition 2016, led by President Adama Barrow, that defeated ex-President Jammeh, and a national consensus had agreed to implement a constitutional reform process that should lead to a third republic. As critical stakeholders in the process, we are yet to be availed the opportunity to meaningfully partake in the political dialogue initiated by the government of the Gambia. The inclusion and participation of civil society as a non-partisan entity is urgent, legitimate, and critical to the building of meaningful political consensus. It protects the legitimacy and integrity of the process and upholds the best interests of the citizenry. The Gambia Civil Society strongly urges President Adama Barrow, International Idea, and the Chief Mediator Goodluck Jonathan to ensure transparency, participation, inclusion, and national consensus.
That was the chairman of the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations in the Gambia, John Charles Njai, addressing journalists on the future of the rejected draft constitution. Well, that will take us to our first break. When we return, we look at news from beyond our borders. Stay tuned.
In the Gambia, your favorite GSM operator, Africell, is the first and only GSM operator to launch a brand new technology called the eSIM. The eSIM simply means you can use your phone without a SIM card. Do you have an iPhone 11? Any of the iPhone X series? a Google Pixel 3, or any new phone that supports the e-technology? Then walk into any AfriCell customer care center and activate your eSIM today. With your virtual AfriCell SIM, you can use more than one number without having a physical SIM card in your phone. Enjoy this brand new technology for the first time in the Gambia, brought to you by AfriCell. eSIM your phone without a SIM card. For more information, please call 111. Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
saa yu ay jula déggoo pour yokka njëgi marchandise loolu mooy kompolo pour yokka nag njëg ngir seeral ko pour yokka seen profit doxalin boobu nag ñi cey loru mooy client yi wala jëndakat ak yeneen jula yi nga xam ne ni bokkuñ ci li di loi bi nguur gi tëral nag ci atum 2007 ci wàllum jongante ci wàlli njula dafa tere nag kompolo wala boog déggoo pour yokka njëgi marchandise saa yoo leen yëgee kuy def lii rek boole leen ko ci liggéeykaay Gambia Competition and Consumer Protection Commission ci nomba yi 70-00696 50-00033 wala 44-66-940 wala bokk benn tey ngeen dem ci Gambia Competition and Consumer Protection Commission seen office bi nekk ci Kootu.
Welcome back. Now, a deliberately triggered explosion happened in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, in a normally busy downtown area of the southern American city. Police say a parked motorhome, or RV, blew up shortly after it broadcast a recorded warning. At least 3 people were injured. Unidentified human remains have also been found near the blast site as investigations continue into the explosion. More in this CGTN news report.
The explosion sounded like. This is what it looked like. An early morning blast on Christmas Day.
Unfortunately, this is not the way any of us wanted to spend our Christmas morning, I know.
Police were first called to this street in downtown Nashville, responding to reports of gunshots fired.
Has also responded, they encountered an RV that had a recording saying that a potential bomb would detonate within 15 minutes.
Then a frantic scramble to get area residents to safety.
Officers, upon hearing that, decided to evacuate the buildings nearby. So they began knocking on doors, making announcements.
And just as promised, the blast went off. 3 people suffered minor injuries, and there were some close calls.
There was actually a man walking his dog on 2nd Avenue that an officer stopped and directed in another way just before the RV exploded. The explosion knocked one of our officers to the ground.
Several vehicles were destroyed and buildings severely damaged. But amid the destruction, some sense of relief. A normally bustling part of town was quiet. A holiday morning meant the area's businesses were closed and many people weren't around. The FBI, one of the agencies leading the investigation and pleading with the public for leads.
We're putting everything we have into finding who was responsible for what's happened here today.
Francis Coe, CGTN, Washington.
Now to end the news, a quick look at our top stories once again. GRTS has investigated the connection between cancer and cosmetic products that compress the breast, trapping harmful cancer-causing toxins. Gambian civil society groups have revealed their position on the new Bill of Rights, voted down by the National Assembly as government opens the way towards constitutional dialogue. Now, after successfully completing 12-year education, Talindin Islamic Institute graduated over 300 students. In internationals, a deliberately triggered explosion happened in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, in a normally busy downtown area of the southern American city. Elsewhere, hundreds of migrants stranded in northwestern Bosnia have spent a fortnight in freezing temperatures and squalid conditions after the camp that housed them was burned down. Well, that was all in this edition of the News at 8. Please join us again at 2200 hours for more news. Until then, stay tuned to watching GRTS and join Bichi Manjaku at 9 whilst we wait for the Fisheries program immediately after the newscast. Until then, stay tuned to GRTS.
promotion in